Welcome to our channel. I'm Chad, and this is my wife Leslie. Come join us as we try to live more and work less. We could be traveling by sailboat, cruise ship, camper, or even a staycation at our cabin. You just never know. While along the way, we'll definitely play some pickleball and volleyball and maybe catch a race or two. And we will no doubt be tailgating at a football game near you. So join us and our friends all on our travels. Do you ever dream of buying a boat and just sailing away, watching sunsets, floating through crystal clear water, or doing boat projects? Not sure if you could do it, or even if you should do it? Hopefully this video will help you fulfill those dreams. For us, we had never owned a sailboat, and for that matter, never even been on a sailboat. In the video, we will share our experiences of how we discovered sailing, our sailing experiences, and the 5 boats that we have owned over the past several years. We hope you find this helpful. Let's go. So as we've mentioned, Leslie and I are both real estate appraisers. A couple years ago, actually several years ago, I was asked to appraise a marina in North Carolina, and that's really how I discovered you could live and travel on a boat. While there, an older gentleman on the dock inquired about what I was doing, so I told him, appraising the marina. I then asked him what he was doing. He informed me that he and his wife were liveaboards, and they had just completed a circumnavigation. I asked him what both of those things meant because I had no clue. I was blown away at the thought that we could live on a sailboat and travel from place to place. So for my 2-hour drive home, all I could think about was buying a sailboat and sailing away. But like most of you, I have never been on a sailboat, much less had any idea how to sail. So like every prudent person does, I got on YouTube and I typed in living on a sailboat. Then we found these guys. You may have heard of them. If not, you should definitely check them out. The first video I pull up, I see beautiful young women, beautiful blue water, and half the time these pretty young girls were running around with no clothes. I looked at Leslie and said, hey, this is for me. She laughed, and I'm pretty sure she didn't think it was for her, but I convinced her. So what do? Again, what most people were doing at this time, got on the internet and searched Marketplace and Craigslist, which still was a thing at the time, to find us a sailboat. We came across a sailboat. In fact, it was a Hunter 25. It was located in the same city where we lived. So we just went to see it because it was so close. This Hunter 25 was listed for $2,500. It was built in the mid-80s. And at the time when we purchased it, he had just installed a brand new 9.9 outboard engine. So my thought was, well, if I sink it, I just need to be able to float this engine back to shore, and then I would break even because in my eyes, the outboard was probably close to $2,500 in value. We didn't name this boat. It didn't have a name when we bought it, so we just refer to it as the Hunter 25. Here I am with my dad. Yes, he looked scared. He probably was scared. He only went with me once because he probably wasn't sure of my sailing abilities, and he was probably right, but that's why he squeezed in the life jacket, although it definitely did not fit. This guy right here is my dad's twin brother, Terry. Terry actually went several times with us, usually in stormy weather, and he didn't seem to be bothered by my lack of experience. These pics are important to us as we make this video because my dad passed away in April and my uncle passed away in July. So having these memories with them on the water is priceless. But like everyone, we decided we wanted a little bit bigger boat. So we listed the Hunter 25 for sale. We got what we had paid for it, $2,500, and then we began boat shopping. Again, on the internet. So initially we went to look at a Catalina 30. The Catalina 30 was named Goober. Leslie was not real happy about that from the very beginning. As soon as we saw the boat, she said no. It was wet, it smelled bad, and again, she was not okay with having a boat named Goober. The owner of the marina we were at mentioned he had another boat that he had just got from an owner that had not paid dock fees. He said it was a Hunter 31. At the time, I was hesitant because I had got on the internet and all I read was about how Hunters were trash and they were not good sailboats. Well, looking back, we don't believe that that was the case at all. Over the years, we've sailed with and seen lots of Hunters in the anchorages. These Hunters range in size and age, and they're all in the same places that we are. And a lot of them are in the same places as these mega yachts. So do your own research, but just don't necessarily believe what everyone says on the internet. Every boat has a price point and a use that they're good for. Go talk to the people that own these boats. Go talk to the people that live on these boats or sell them, and you'll get a completely different tone. And these are people that have been on these boats for 5-10 years. I could probably make an entire video about Hunter sailboats, and maybe we'll do that at some point, but just kind of take some of that advice with a grain of salt. So our Hunter 31 was named Panacea. We paid $5,000 for her. At the time, all she needed was a battery. She'd been well maintained by the previous owners up to this most recent owner, and he had just stored everything on the boat and it never left the slip. So we purchased the boat in Topping, Virginia, which is near Deltaville. The marina was called Regent Point Marina. The owner, Jim, was the broker that we dealt with, and he became a great mentor to us, gave us a lot of insight, and his staff there really educated us about sailing, and we could not have had a better experience. The marina is gorgeous. It's in a beautiful location and just overall well managed, and the boats there are at the time were all maintained. So it was just a really good fit for us. So we definitely got our money's worth with this boat. We sailed the boat over about a 3-year period. We started in Topping, Virginia, went down the East Coast, stopping in North Carolina where we lived, and then eventually took the boat to St. Pete, Florida. Again, we went through the ditch on the east coast of the U.S., down through Miami. We made it to Marathon, went under a 7-mile bridge, and then up the Gulf, and made it to St. Pete, Florida, where the boat stayed for a fairly lengthy time in the time that we owned her. We then took the boat back for a 5-week trip to the Keys. We did this with our son, and it was great. It was right before we went to high school. We just had a wonderful experience. We improved our sailing skills. We definitely improved our anchoring skills. This boat had a few more systems than the Hunter 25, so I was learning more about maintenance. This was my first diesel, so I was learning how to work on the diesel, how to service it with impellers, learning about boat plumbing and DC wiring. After our time on Panacea, we decided we wanted a little bit larger boat. So we listed Panacea for sale and sold her for $10,000. After paying $5,400 and not really making a huge investment, we felt like we'd come out pretty good on that deal. So next we go boat shopping again. Got on the internet and found 6 or 7 boats in and around the Annapolis, Maryland area. We went to take a look. It was early spring, so the weather was hit and miss. When we were there, it was extremely cold. We were looking at boats, and once or twice we saw snowflakes. So it was not the greatest time to be on the water. Most of these boats were on the hard. But while we were looking, our broker had mentioned that she had a listing that she thought we might be interested in. We weren't really looking for a boat. We were there just kind of kicking around, trying to get an idea of a boat and a layout that we would be happy with. Nonetheless, this broker takes us to see the boat, which was in the water. And immediately Leslie fell in love with this boat. I was still in the mindset of, hey, we're not here to buy a boat, we're just looking at boats. So we left after I told her no and went back to our hotel. So Leslie would not stop talking about this boat. So next day I called the broker, and the boat was listed for $25,000. I told her, hey, I'm not really interested in the boat. Leslie is, but $22,500 was as much as we wanted to pay for it. This boat did come with a dinghy and a small outboard. So to me, $22,500 at the time was reasonable, but we weren't getting it at the great deal that we got Panacea for. But the owner agreed, and $22,500 is what we paid for this boat. She is a mid-80s Endeavor 35, and the Endeavor product we have become fans of. In fact, the boat that we really wanted to buy after this one was an Endeavor 42 center cockpit, but that's another story. So you can see here I'm at the helm for a sea trial with the prior owner. It was a gorgeous day, almost 80 degrees. Since there was a cash deal, we didn't have to do a survey. Literally after the sea trial, we said, hey, we like it, we want it. We handed over the money and did the paperwork, just a title. So there wasn't any Coast Guard paperwork or anything. So it was pretty simple. But at the end of that day, the boat was ours. Again, the weather was great for the 2 days we were there. And when I say we, Leslie and I. So given the fact that we really thought we were going to buy this boat, I'd already set up for a kid that worked for us, and by kid I mean he was still in his mid-20s, to fly up. He landed at the same time I was dropping Leslie off. She flew back on the same plane that he had flown up from Raleigh on. That night, a cold front came through. There was ice on the docks. The wind was blowing. It was so cold. It was a super cold trip down the Chesapeake and into the ditch. AJ is in the picture here, and poor AJ is from Buffalo, New York, and he said that's the coldest he's ever been in his life. So we decided to stop again in Topping, Virginia. I had reached out to Jim at Regent Point Marina the day before, told him the situation, asked if we could bring the boat there and put it in a slip, and when it got warm enough, could he do a bottom job? And he agreed that would be great. So the next day we arrived at Regent Point Marina in Topping, Virginia, tied the boat up, and left it with him, and AJ and I drove south to warmer weather. So Jim at Regent Point, about a month and a half later, reached out, said the boat was, bottom paint was done, boat was back in the water. So Leslie and I planned a trip to get the boat and brought her down to Carolina Beach. By now, it's around late May, early June. Our son was out of school, so he stayed with the grandparents, and Leslie and I delivered the boat to Carolina Beach. There we sewed new cushions. You can see the originals were a little bit dated. Boat had great, beautiful wood floors, lots of storage for a 35-footer. It was an easy boat to handle. It was easy to learn how to dock her. It had been well taken care of by the prior owner. It was just a great boat for our next boat. And again, we had gone from 25 to 31, and now we were at 35. So we still see Delirious as our friend Tara of Sailing with TNT has her now. So if you want to check out her YouTube, you can probably find Sailing with TNT just by putting that in the search. So now this is where things get interesting. Leslie and I were staying on Delirious, still in Carolina Beach, 1 week in the summer. I was on Yacht World and found a Nautical Development 40 that was close by. I mainly wanted to see the layout, but had no plans of buying the boat. Again, we already owned a boat. We were physically sleeping on that boat while we were looking at this Nautical Development 40. So while we're looking at the 40, it was hot. It was in June, so there was no airflow. We were in a boatyard. The broker mentioned, hey, I'm listing the boat next to us. You might like it. Again, in my head, I had no interest in buying anything anyway, but I thought I would humor him and said, yeah, that's fine. As we exited the Nautical Development, I look to the side and I see what I knew wasn't a male, again being a Delos fan. And I said, is that the boat? And he said, yeah. And I said, man, I don't think we can afford that boat. The males at the time had a huge following because of Delos, and they're just overall great boats. So I didn't think it was necessarily going to be in our price range. He mentioned that it was a unique situation. So then he showed us Golden Days. Golden Days is a mid-80s, a male Maramoo 46. Leslie and I were in love with this boat from the time we stepped on it. To us, it was the smaller brother to SV Delos, which you could see how great that vessel was. You can see right here in the picture where our car is parked. So Leslie went down to start the car because, again, it was super hot and she wanted to get the AC cooling. So I stayed there with the broker to help close up the boat and then came down the steps. And as soon as I sat in the car, she said, "I've already transferred the money. I know we're buying this boat." And we did. We made an offer on the boat within a couple days once he got the paperwork signed with the seller, because it wasn't even listed at the time. So we paid $64,000 in 2019. Just like the other boats, this boat still had not had a survey when we purchased it. We self-inspected the boat, and at the price point at the time, just simply could not walk away. I'll talk more about surveys later in the video. So the prior owner, the husband, had passed away in the middle of doing a refit. This guy, unfortunately, we didn't get to meet, but he was such a remarkable person. Had sailed this boat through the Mediterranean, through the Caribbean, and just a really interesting guy. I think at one point he was an opera singer. He was an engineer by trade, and if you saw the boat and the wiring in it, you knew he was a very good engineer, and he was meticulous about everything. We got the opportunity to talk with his widow, and we actually went to Georgia and spent some time in her home and talked to her about the boat and their past. It was just a neat opportunity to get to hear about him, since we never got the opportunity to meet him. The name of the boat, Golden Days, and she asked us about the price. We agreed to pay her list price, which was the $64 at the time. And then she asked us if we had thought about a name for the boat, and we told her, based on the story of him and her and their travels, we wanted to leave the boat named Golden Days. So she was excited to hear that. If you've never been on an Amel, go look at one. It's such a great product. Anything from the 70s to current is well built and is seaworthy. If I didn't have a boat right now, we would probably be looking at another Amel. The timing isn't right now. So now we've got both boats located in Wilmington, because we had moved Delirious to the same marina as Golden Days, so that it was much easier to go back and forth, check on both boats. You'll see Golden Days, just a beautiful interior, well laid out, heavy ballast, 2-head boat, 2 staterooms. The aft cabin is a monster. The giant engine room, everything was accessible. It pretty much checked all of our boxes that we had come up with over the prior 3 boats and watching other videos and looking at other boats. This is boat 4 of 5, and we talked about 5 boats. So you ask, why would you get another boat if this was your dream boat? Well, this is why. Unfortunately, we took a direct strike to the mizzen. It was a total loss per the insurance company. They flew a surveyor up from Florida. She completed the survey for the insurance company, and maybe 3 weeks later, the insurance company notified us that they had totaled the boat and would pay just the insurable amount, which luckily we had increased at the time. Our insurance company was great to work with. It was kind of no questions asked. Having the video definitely helped, but they paid for the surveyor and her expenses out of their pocket. That did not come out of the insurable value. So a wonderful experience with our insurance company. So here we go. On to boat number 5. Let me paint a picture that this boat search occurred while COVID was happening. And if you know anything about looking for boats during COVID, they had all been purchased. Everybody tried to get off-grid, and they bought boats, and they could go to the Bahamas and live at anchor, or just live on their boat at anchor somewhere in the States. And it was kind of a weird time. All the boats we had looked at during COVID were in Florida, because Florida was still kind of open. Most of them were rotten and overpriced, or just simply overpriced. We came across Von Yatsky, in St. Mary's, Georgia. Her owners had been actively cruising her in the Bahamas, but had hauled out and went back to Canada. And then COVID hit. So they didn't know when they could return to the States or to their boat. So they did list the boat for sale, and luckily I was able to get there fairly quick before it got snatched up. We paid $67,500 for this boat in September of 2020. She's a mid-80s Catalina Morgan, Nelson Merrick 45-4, and you'll see a 45, a 45-4, and this boat marketed as a 46. Most of this hull design was a center cockpit. We're one of the few aft cockpits, but you do come across them every now and then. We didn't really know what Von Yachtski was or the relationship of it, and with the owners being out of country, we didn't have a whole lot of conversation about the name. And that's when Leslie and I decided to rename her Sight Out. Leslie and I, again, met playing volleyball, and it just seemed like an original name that better described us. So this is the boat that we've sailed on for the last 3 seasons in the Bahamas, 2 of those in the Exumas, and then last summer in the Abacos. It's the boat that we will sail on this season, and as for now, the foreseeable future. Anyway, Sight Out now is our home for about 4 to 6 months out of the year. She wasn't necessarily our dream boat to start with, but we've definitely grown fond of her and her design. She points high, has 2 large staterooms, 2 heads, separate shower from the heads, great deck areas, a full enclosure that during some of the cold sailing and wet, windy trips offshore has just been priceless. So she's just been a great boat for us, and we're happy that we got to find her when we did. So for the YouTube clicks, here's my attempt at clickbait. It'll probably be my last time. I'm pretty sure Leslie's going to be furious.
Just kidding.
So here's my last little quick review about our dinghy. We found this Highfield Ultralight 290 on Marketplace in central North Carolina. Had the aluminum hull and was much lighter than our fiberglass dink that came with Von Yachtski. At the time, everyone on YouTube raved about the Highfield. I'm still torn a little. It has 1 cup holder. Hello, cruisers always have a cold drink with them, and we have 1 cup holder. Second, the cup holder doesn't drain, so when it rains, all it does is fill with water. Last, it just doesn't age well. It does a fine job getting us around. It's stable, but just gets old quick. But in fairness, all inflatables tend to suffer from aging as they spend a lot of time in harsh conditions with the sun, salt air, people driving them up on rocks. So I don't know. We'll figure out more on the dinghy front. So, should we buy a sailboat? Neither Leslie or I regret it. We had no sailing experience to start with, and it's worked out fine. We do make mistakes, but we try to minimize those mistakes, and we've had really good experiences. My advice would be focus on weather and routing over sailing. You will learn to sail. It's just on my deliveries, my conversations with the captain, I tended to focus more on weather, forecasts, and routing, considering the forecasts. The sailing will come with time and at your own pace. The weather's never going to wait on you or coddle you, so make sure you understand that if you really want to focus on something to start. The opportunity to meet other boaters, buddy boat with friends, have sundowners or cruising with friends and family is just an experience like no other. Nothing can replace that time of the views and experiences that sailing provides. The sense of community among sailors is amazing. It does come with headaches and the occasional hangover, but we've truly enjoyed it.